Hey everybody, how y'all doing? I'm
Yo.
Joey Tedesco from the Cartoon Palooza,
And it's Mikey.
and we just got out of seeing Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, the 2014 directed film by Matt Reeves, whose credits also includes Cloverfield, first time to the Planet of the Apes franchise, which follows, I believe, 10 years after the first film?
Well, the way they described it, I think they said 10 years.
Okay.
So it's 10 years after Rise came out from 3 years ago.
Okay, so it takes place 10 years after, as they described, after the flu, which, the simian flu.
This is, I guess, I have to spoil the first movie.
Yeah, you're gonna have to find out. Guess what? Simian flu gets out and kills out, I'd say, a good half of the population, whereas the other half, who are genetically immune to the virus, kind of form a resistance. And and then there's also, of course, the simians, the apes, who are able to have increased intelligence, which includes their leader in the San Francisco Bay Area. If we described it like that, their leader in the San Francisco Bay Area, Caesar.
Caesar from the first movie.
Caesar from the first movie. He has his own colony. He has his own.
He created an ape civilization.
It really is a civilization from the ground up, and it's really fascinating seeing this place work. Like, they've got, like, iconography that relates to the first film. Like, I guess another spoiler from the first film is that he has, like, a window that he looks out, which is like a symbol of hope.
And in the as we're introduced to their civilization, we pass by Maurice, Caesar's friend, and he's basically, like, teaching the younger generations.
Yeah, and then there's also Rocket from the first film, who was, well, yeah, he was just another ape he met in the place where Tom Felton beat him up. Draco Malfoy. But irregardless, back to the plot. Caesar has his own civilization going on. No humans have seemed to bothered them until a group of humans come across them, and it causes some panic. And Caesar's...
So now it's basically Caesar having to interact with humans for the first time in basically years.
Exactly. And basically most of the conflict comes from the fact that the humans need to get to a dam. That's not really a spoiler. That's kind of like what's necessary to know. Like,
basically, the humans are looking for
a power
source to basically so they can survive.
Yeah. So basically,
which happens to be in the ape civilization.
Pretty much, and that's the thing that's getting in their way, and the apes don't want to have to deal with them. An ape in the form of Koba, the deformed lab ape from the first film, who has a real edge against the humans, doesn't trust them.
It's basically, it's not really like, it's basically, I guess, the theme of the movie is neither side is...
Yeah, neither side. There's always, like, whereas in the first film, you kind of felt like you needed to root for the apes all the way through, and that all the apes had a common cause. There was no real conflict within themselves. They all had a common goal. Up to this point, as I think most sequels do, it introduces new themes. And I think the theme in this film is that within every civilization or any group, there's going to be conflicts. There's going to be disagreements and agreements. And in this case, we have Caesar, who wants peace, and he wants to grow as a civilization and progress. And then you have some people... Koba, who is
officially loyal to Caesar, but you can tell from the get-go he does not approve of everything that Caesar does.
He doesn't, and I think a lot of that comes from fear, and that comes from fear that was instilled in him as a lab rat, really. And I think...
They touch upon it. Caesar at one point just says Koba was raised in a lab, so he only knows hate.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, this is something that's been done in movies before. Yeah. I mean, we know that there's going to be...
And you know why Caesar is a more compassionate person, because of how he was raised in the first film.
Which brings up another good point, is whether or not, nature versus nurture. If you were brought up in a better society or been a better seed, would this person have been just as good? Because I think the best thing about Koba's character is I felt like there's depth to him in that aspect. Like, he was, to me at least, in the first film, he kind of seemed like a generic character. Like, when I was first introduced to Koba from Rise of the Planet of the Apes, he just struck me as this character who had an edge against the guy who ran the factory. Like, every time, who ran the the lab. Like every time they show like an interaction between Koba and the guy who owned that place, it's always like, I'm gonna cut you, I'm gonna get you. So like, you know, no spoilers ahead when he actually does get that guy. It actually kind of made me chuckle in the first film because you know you kind of saw that coming because you know that character was going to get his comeuppance. Here, I felt like they at least explored his character more, give him more screen time, especially give him, just more screen time and more character, really. I feel like we see more sides to him. We see a snarky side to him. We see a deceitful side to him. Right next to Caesar, I would have to say Koba is my favorite character in the film. Very complex. More complex than he needs to be. I wouldn't say like he's a, you know, I mean, in some ways, it might be kind of a stretch to say he's kind of like a Shakespearean character, but, you know, he was, you know, in comparison to what the movie was giving us, I think he was going up there as like this classic Shakespearean villain with deceit like Iago from Othello. I know I'm sounding really like a pretentious film critic right there, but that's the way I saw it at least.
Whatever.
In my day, as I'm watching Othello, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, great parallels, tour de force. But either way, what else would you say about the effects in the film?
The effects. The first film, the effects kind of were off-putting to me at the beginning, but as the movie continued, it's more of it pulled me in.
Right.
This one, just from the beginning,
great texture. When you're looking straight into their eyes, I think in the first film you could kind of tell that the skin around their eyes looks like something that was rendered on a computer. Here, with the depth of vision in relationship to the camera, like there's actual depth to it, and there's actual stickiness. The hair looks like it's matted, like it's been in the rain for too long. The way it moves, the way in relationship to the character moves, like some parts you could still tell like it's, you know, made in a computer, and I think that's intentional as far as, you know, you don't want something to be uncanny, but at the same aspect, it kind of works. It's also very stylized, too. I felt like there's more style, like they weren't trying to aim just for realism, but that there's enough for it to be cinematically good.
They're, I guess, humanized apes is really the way.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point, too, because, you know, the thing I like about the choice of making the motion capture is the fact that the whole idea... I'm going to bring up the Tim Burton films for a comparison. The one thing I never...
Well, I've never, for the record, I've never actually seen Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
Then you're in the safe zone. You're not missing much. All I could say, though, is the one thing I didn't like about that film is that they actually made the apes seem too much like apes, even though they've more civilized than the ones that are in this film. Whereas you feel like they are humans, but they're going backwards. Whereas in this film, I feel like you have apes that are moving forwards. And that's the thing I liked about the first film, too, is that they are becoming more humanized. They are walking more on 2 feet. They are talking more. They're riding horse. Explain to me that. How the heck is a horse able to carry like a 500-pound orangutan? Are they able to do that?
Well, I don't think I ever saw the orangutans doing it.
I don't know, but
Caesar's about human-sized, so...
He is about human-sized, but there was like one scene where there's like a horse carrying a giant-ass orangutan. All I'm thinking is, I'd hate to be that horse. Oh, fuck me. Just turn me into glue already. Oh, excuse my language. But yeah, I have to say, as far as the effects go, major improvement. Mad props to Weta. And I would also have to say mad props to the animators who work on some of the details that come with motion capture, and I will also give credit to the actors behind the suits who provide those animators to work off of something, like Andy Serkis and Tony Cabell, I believe, who played Koba. So I would have to say mad props to them. I know in a recent interview, Serkis has been getting a lot of slack because he says that all the performance comes from him, which in essence I think comes a good percentage of the performance does come from Serkis, but another percentage does come from the people at Weta who do interpret what they're given by his performance. And I think in recent interviews he's also kind of stated that too, is that it's not just him, it's also a combination of the two. So I just think that there's a great marriage. And I hate making comparisons, especially when I'm making a review and I'm trying to review something on its own. I would have to say that I do think that in the first film, a lot of the acting was very hard to come across, and sometimes the actors seemed like they were hamming it up at times, a little too much. I feel like there's more subtlety to these characters, and I think maybe that's intentional, as if they're growing up and they're becoming more wizened. And I think in that aspect, I feel like more of the performances from the motion capture in that aspect did perfectly well. Which also reminds me, actually, what did you think about the human performances? Because here we're talking about all the great things about the apes. What about the humans?
Well...
Oh, I'm sorry. I spit when I talk. Daffy Duck. Sorry.
Well...
Get some wipes there.
Whatever. Well, the main one that we focus on is Malcolm. Mm-hmm. And Malcolm is very likable.
Oh, yeah. I think he's an everyman. I think he's not too smart, but he's not too dumb. He's someone we can sympathize with.
We understand what he's doing.
Yeah.
Why he's doing it. And frankly, with the other guy, the other leader guy of the SEALs, you can understand...
Gary Oldman?
Yeah, Gary Oldman's character.
Dreyfus?
You understand also why he is the way he is, even though
yeah.
you don't necessarily have to agree with everything he...
That's what I mean, too. Is like, I felt like his character could have been very much like the one he portrayed in the Book of Eli, which is, he is evil, but he has a cause, and he has a relatable cause. But in this time, I feel like he's more of a regular person. At least Gary Oldman has a reason for what he wants to do, and it isn't just him being a blind, stereotypical bad guy who just wants to, take over the world. Like in this situation, especially when it comes to like apocalypse films, you would have a character like that in a position of power who would like to get more power. He isn't so much thinking about himself, whereas you can really
thinking about the people.
Yeah.
For the most of the movie.
Which is a real, I think, kind of a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you, because it takes the apocalypse genre into a new direction. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to know whether or not this is going to be if this is anything new, but I think it is. I think it's a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you.
Well, I liked his character. Mm-hmm. I think probably the only character I had any problems with, just because of, I guess, stereotypical, is Carver. Oh, yeah. There's a character in the film who is the typical gun-toting, I hate, shoot first type of character. And the only reason why they keep him around is because he's the plot device that can help. Basically, they outright say it in the movie. They're trying to get to this dam to start it up to help save humanity. And the only person who has the brain to do that is Carver. Pretty much. And up to a point where he doesn't even help them out with the bridge. I think when he... I don't think this would be a spoiler, would it, if I said it? Well... Spoiler warning, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, skip ahead maybe 30... give him about a minute. Yeah, skip ahead to 1 minute as we tell you. I'll just put an annotation saying where. There you go. We'll just follow the annotation. Basically, Carver, in an explosion, causes his leg to get hurt, which causes him to stay in the car and not be able to fix the dam, even though it was stated in the film that he's the only person in the crew who can actually fix it. I think he didn't cause I think the explosion they caused intentionally to, block some things. The thing Carver did wrong, which, you just went to stereotypical, was the apes only allow them to go to this dam on the condition they have to give up all their guns. And lo and behold. And Carver brings a gun anyway. A sawed-off shotgun. And he threatens the apes with it. Exactly. And, you can't help but... I feel like he could have been a better character. I felt like if they maybe went into his story a little bit more, maybe been he obviously has an edge out. He wants to blame somebody. And so he's obviously gonna, blame somebody else for his problems. But I felt like they spent so much time developing all these other characters. They could have maybe at least given him more screen time as well. Maybe even made a parallel between him and Koba. Right? Maybe Malcolm is just like Caesar as Koba is to Carter. But I don't think they really did that. But I wouldn't say that's a big complaint. I would say maybe it's a minor complaint that keeps it from being an all-around great movie. But hey, every movie's got its share of problems, right? Yeah, I think so.
You can find plot holes in The Godfather. I bet you could.
I don't even know who he's pointing to, but
Yeah.
this was still a very good movie. Very good movie.
I think so too. I'm just gonna have to say it. I would have to say I like this movie more. As far as what sequels do and to franchises, I would actually have to say that I like this movie more than I like Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which does say a lot because I, in fact, really loved that film too, more so than I thought I would. I would have just thought this franchise would have been a cash grab on a popular franchise that existed and has a big following, but they really did take advantage of it.
As far as comparison, I'm not sure yet if I like this one more than I liked Rise.
Mm-hmm.
Because something I liked about Rise was it was just Caesar's story. It was basically just his arc only.
Mm-hmm.
And with this one, there's far more characters, each with basically their own story to tell. And I'm not sure if I just liked it better because we were only focusing on the one first, but it's more of I just haven't decided which one I like better.
Yeah, maybe give yourself some time. You did just recently see Rise for the first time, too.
Yeah, as of when we're watching this, I'd actually only seen Rise for the first time yesterday.
Yeah, so maybe take it in a little bit more. I think this is one of those films that I'm just saying right now, I mean, I kind of processed it a little bit, and I did see Rise for, I'd say, a while. I saw it just before coming in to see this film. I'm fresh off of seeing Rise. Been a while since I've seen the original Planet of the Apes, maybe about a year or two. But I do love that. I do like that film. It's one of those iconic sci-fi movies, kind of like having to watch Star Trek Wrath of Khan, or even what's another good sci-fi pick you would throw out there that's like a must for anybody.
Star Wars.
Okay, there you go. Star Wars. It's like Star Wars. No, it's not like Star Wars,
really.
but you should go ahead and put it on your list next to Star Wars. But I guess altogether, I thought the effects were great. Some very good performances. Maybe the pacing was a little off at times. I felt like the time of the movie was catching up to it. But altogether, I love the tone of the film. I love how drastic the tone of it is. I love what it does as a sequel. It takes the themes that were introduced in the first film and even expanded on it. And I especially love, I would legitimately in the theater, I think you can quote me saying this, I was in my seat staring at it going, wow, where are they going to go from here? And that's all I'm thinking. And when a sequel to a franchise or anything does that, I think it's done its job well. I give it an A-.
Thumbs up. Alrighty, so...
Together, critics, strong.
Good night, everybody.
Strong! Branch! Camera off!